Okay, the title of today's little talk is How to Make Money with Your iPhone. And this is pretty important if you got an iPhone or a smartphone and you want to make money. So listen carefully. The great driver in our society, in fact, the great driver throughout history, is changing technology. If you can wrap your head around what new technology is doing and what it means, you can get ahead of the curve, and generally if you're there early, you can make a fortune. Just ask Bill Gates, who at the age of 18 looked at burgeoning computers and understood that it was all about software. You see this in every industry. When a new technology comes along, it gets rid of the old and it brings in something entirely new. The trick is not to be the old, the trick is to be part of something new. When automobiles came along, thanks to Henry Ford, who made them very popular, the horse and carriage business went out of business, but people in the automobile business or gas stations or tires or cars or drive-ins made a fortune. When self-driving cars come along, which it looks like they're doing, it looks like General Motors and Ford are going to have to get with it or get out. Tesla seems to have gotten with it. So new technologies come all the time. In our business, which is the film and television and video and online business, the same holds true. Every time a new technology comes along, the business changes, and people who get what the new technology can do beyond the obvious are the ones who are able to make a fortune. Now, in our business, the television video business, we're an interesting nexus of two changing technologies. The first is the platforms. That's where stuff gets put out. So it used to be, first there were only a couple of broadcast networks, and then that meant only 3 networks. And if you wanted to be in the business, you had to go work for NBC, CBS, or somebody like that, and that's where you got your job. And you spent your whole life working as an employee, and you got a salary, and that was great. In the 1980s, cable came along and took us from 3 channels to 500 channels, but that just meant there were more places to be employees. Now, as you might have heard, everything is going online, like Netflix, like Amazon, like everybody else. Online is where all television, whatever that means, is going to appear in the future. And you can see this happening all the time. The other day, Amazon announced they were going to start doing programming on their own. They don't really need anybody else. This opens an enormous opportunity because we've gone from 3 networks to 500 networks to essentially online infinite networks. This makes a big difference. But there are 2 technologies that are changing simultaneously. The first is the networks and the appetite for content. The second is how you make the stuff. 30 years ago, when I started in this business, you had giant beta cams, you had professional cameramen, you had really expensive gear, and it cost a fortune to make a television program. That's why they were basically only made by the big networks, because only they could afford to do it. Today, your iPhone, if you have one, or a smartphone, which you probably do, is capable of shooting 4K. It also edits, it puts in graphics, it puts in music, and it shares with the world. Essentially, you're carrying around more than a phone, you're carrying a complete broadcast, television, production company. All the stuff you need is in your pocket. You probably didn't realize that, but it is. So you can make stuff for the cable channel. Now, what I want to show you, I'm going to make a little chart here. We don't normally do graphics in these little talks, but this one is important because I want to show you exactly how this industry is changing before your eyes and how you can fit into it and be a part of it. And that, of course, is one of the reasons that we launched the VJ.com. Let's take a look at the industry per se with a little help from a little graphic friend that I have here, which is going to go out backwards because I'm shooting this thing on a reverse, so you'll just have to live with it, okay? So 1973, which I've written here backward, is where we started in the television business, and at that time, there were only 3 networks in 1973, and those 3 networks essentially split the American audience, which was 100 million people. That meant every broadcast network got 30 million viewers. That meant there was a lot of money for advertising. So that was a great business as long as you own CBS, NBC, or ABC, which meant there were only 3 people who could really make a fortune out of this thing. As time went by, we got to the cable channels, which meant 500 cable channels, but they were still dividing that audience. So there were the same audience, but now split over 500 channels. And now we get to the internet, which is essentially infinite channels. So as you get more and more channels, which is what we have, but the same number of viewers, what happens is that the audience drops, like that red line over there. Here was the 1970s. You got, everybody was watching the same channels. Here's cable. Everybody split over like Discovery and stuff like that. And here's today. Everybody is split over thousands of channels. What this means is that you have this huge demand for content. Every single channel, every single online site needs content. So there are 40,000 broadcasting cable channels in the world. They all need content. They all need shows. There's no point in having a channel unless you can show stuff. The problem is, where do they get it from? In the early days, which would be back here, they made television shows for about $1 million an hour, so only networks could afford to do it. And when productions companies got into the business, they made a killing. I should know. I used to run New York Times Television. We produced thousands of hours at $300,000 or $250,000 per half-hour show. It was a fantastic business. Today, there are very, very few viewers. That's why you see Scripps is selling to Discovery, and even Discovery doesn't really know what the hell to do with this thing. Their business model is shattered. They need tons and tons of stuff. They don't have the viewers to drive the advertising to give them the revenue to make the thing work. So they're in a squeeze. How do you get out of the squeeze? Back to the other side. With your iPhone and your smartphone, you can shoot, with a little bit of training, broadcast quality television programs, and you can create them, and you can sell them or license them to all of these networks. And that's really where the future of the business is. The future of the business is not in these giant overburdened production companies that have offices and secretaries, and you look at the credit roll that goes on these things, you have to pay all of those people. This is not going to work. Look at the projection for the future. This doesn't work. What does work is if you can take your iPhone and you can make broadcast quality programming, which you can because your iPhone shoots 4K and it edits and it transmits and it does everything else. You can do this on your own or with a couple of your friends. What you need is ideas. Ideas I can't give you. How to do it I can give you. If you develop an idea, as I wrote the other day on Facebook, send it to me, and if it's any good, I'll help you to sell it or license it both in the United States and worldwide. I'm looking for content because they're looking for content. You have to provide the content. But if you have the content or you have the idea and you believe you can make the content, and how hard is it? I mean, look at a TV show. It's simple. Now, a couple of people emailed me, a lot of people emailed me after I did the first one of these things and said, I want to do this, but they don't know what to make, essentially. Here's my advice for figuring out what to make with your iPhone. You have a machine in your living room that is giving you up-to-the-minute, real-time information on what the cable networks are buying. It's called a television. Turn it on. Turn on the channels and look at Food Network, Travel Channel, HGTV. They're all there, and they're not lying. They tell you exactly what it is they want. They just need more and more and more of the same thing. So you figure out some variant on the programming that works in this thing. Now, what do? Do not make a pilot. Instead, just make 1 or 2 minute tease. It's like a trailer for a movie. It's a sales tool. Use your iPhone to go and shoot what you think the thing should look like. If you have the raw material, we want to see it because we can work with you. For us, this is a whole new business. For you, this is a whole new business. But the appetite is limitless. So let's get together here and let's start making content. I mean, this is where writing comes from. Books don't come from employees of Time Warner. Books don't come from employees of Bertelsmann. Books come from people sitting in their living room banging out a book. So now television programs can come from people sitting in their living room banging out a TV show on an iPhone. And that's where we want to take the industry. It's very revolutionary. It's very different. It's right on the cutting edge, but we're quite convinced that this can work if the content is compelling and well done. And that's one of the reasons we have the VJ.com. So go check out the website, but go pick up your phone and go start to shoot some stuff and let's see what happens. I think we can make this work. If you think we can make this work. See you later.